and welcome to another episode of Community Spotlight. Today we are interviewing Jessica Wallace King, who is a clairvoyant. Hello, Jessica.
Hey.
How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Great. Now, the first thing I want to ask you, because there's a lot of misconceptions of what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain to the audience what is a clairvoyant? What is the difference between that and the old-time fortune tellers, per se?
Okay, so a clairvoyant is someone that has the ability to see, hear, and communicate with the other side. Just like you and I are sitting here talking, I can communicate with the dearly departed, along with the spirit realm. With the fortune tellers, you're dealing with people that are going to deal with more like tarot cards, things like that, which I mean I do, but mostly a lot of, I guess where my passion is driven is from connecting with lost loved ones and helping people to bring peace with the loved ones that they've lost.
Right.
So it's more into the communication of, not just kind of guessing and throwing cards into the subject.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me, when did you realize that you had this gift?
My earliest memory is 3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 3 years old when I had my first experience, and I was just told I had a really active imagination.
Right. Right. So at what point did you learn that this is not an overactive imagination?
It was, well, I guess I had been told my entire life I had really good intuition, or I had really good gut instincts. And then I had a girlfriend of mine that was also a clairvoyant that contacted me, and we didn't really have that relationship, but I knew that she had given me some messages from my father. And about 5 years ago, she contacted me and she said, "It's your time." So, and she said, "You're being called," and she asked me if I'd come and talk to her, and I did. And so that was kind of where it all started. And as far as I would receive random messages, but I didn't know how to control it at that point. But 5 years ago is when it really opened, and I could not stop the messages.
So what were you doing prior to getting into using your gifts?
Sales.
Sales.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a big transition.
Well, kind of, just because at least it all involves talking to people. So.
Right, it is people
and I'm still talking to people, so
right. Whether
just
they
in a different capacity.
That's great. That's great. And to me, I can't imagine having those kind of gifts. Have you been frightened at any point?
I always say that there is plenty of stuff in this realm that can be frightening. Based on, I guess, my earliest dreams and things that were given to me at a very young age, it all started to make sense as to why certain things were put into play and why the intuition I had and everything my whole life. So some of the house cleansings can get a little frightening because I do go into people's houses that have had paranormal activity and potentially had some situations where they are living with something that's not very friendly. So those are situations that can get a little tough. Right.
And I imagine dealing with people's emotions and towards losing loved ones and all that can be extremely taxing emotionally for you.
There have been actually one of my live sessions last week. There was a woman that came in that asked a question, and it literally, I was fighting tears. And it wasn't because of anything that she asked, but it was the amount of emotion that gets placed on me by their lost loved ones and things like that. Right. So it can be taxing. But I'm also a master Reiki healer, so I work with energy healing. So that's one thing that has really helped an astronomical amount.
And that leads me into my next question. I was going to ask you. I know that you do chakra guidance. Can you explain exactly what that is for people?
Chakras are the 7 main energy sources that are within our body, and most people have heard of like the third eye, or the crown chakra, some of the more common ones. And they're just the energy sources that run through our body. There's actually hundreds of chakras that we have. And the thing that most people don't recognize is that when there's imbalances in their life and things kind of seem a little bit out of control, whether it be health-wise or emotional, that generally it's a chakra imbalance. So I will work with helping them to clear chakras and also to just make sure that all the gunk that can get built up on them, kind of the emotional baggage that kind of lays on them, to clear that off so that they can actually feel a little bit more balanced and have a happy life like they deserve to.
Right. Well, having this ability to communicate with those that have passed, tell me what you feel. Where do you think you go when you die? Is there a place, a heaven or hell place, or are we reincarnated? Where do you think we go?
You know, I honestly have a very, it might be unconventional or it might be conventional, because I really embrace all religions. I don't believe that there's a wrong or a right. I don't think that it's my place to judge. I don't believe that there's a hell. I truly don't. It's in my heart of hearts. God is a loving God, and for him to be a loving God, I don't see him putting people to burn for eternity. But what I do believe is that people that are that, I guess, bad or possibly evil, that they were sent into a lower position when they come back. Because I do believe in reincarnation. I do believe that people come back for multiple lives.
Right.
So I've gotten some messages that were way too strong and way too accurate with people in explaining things that made sense for them this lifetime. So I have definitely been able to see and understand their past lives and why they're having struggles with this lifetime.
Right, because of unresolved issues.
Debts and things like that, or things that they caused in their past life.
So what we do, we don't get rid of.
No, you might think you escape it, but
yeah, these things get caught up, I imagine.
yes.
Now, when you do your Facebook interviews, you know, in your group settings, how do you do group settings? Do you have, I mean, I would seem to think that would be just a lot of...
It is.
At one time.
They are. They are a lot. Some of them more intense than others. And it was honestly when I started the first one, I didn't know how it was going to go. It was a crapshoot. I mean, like literally, because I was hearing that I needed to. I guess the messages kept coming. I was in sales. I lost my job. I'm a single mom, and I knew something had to happen.
Yeah.
And so I launched 2 different businesses, and this is the one that took. And so you just take with you go with what goes. And when I first did my first live session, they were of course smaller, but I started realizing that energy and people, it's honestly place or distance doesn't matter. It's me taking myself out of the equation and letting the spirit do the talking, because it's not me. I have to give that to something much stronger than me.
Right, I understand that. And, you know, if someone wants to do a one-on-one with you, how do you go about setting that up?
I do, I have a booking tab on my page, on my Facebook page, where they can actually click on that and book from there. All of my sessions are actually managed through Facebook Messenger video, so that, and like where people have to use to drive to wherever they were going and, you know, have the time with that person. Now we can actually just do it through video chat. So I've done sessions in 5 countries at this point, and with hundreds and thousands at this point across the U.S. and other countries.
That's great. So you know, I know a lot of clairvoyants want to touch something, or you don't have to do that.
I don't need to touch anything. I do always request that if there's a specific lost loved one that they're really wanting contact with, that they will send me a photo of that person, just to give me a second to connect with them. I don't have to have it. I mean, I've had plenty that I've connected without it, but I just always say if it's something that means a lot to you and you want me to guarantee that I can try to reach in and get that person to contact, then pictures help.
Right.
So I just ask for pictures to not be sent until the session's booked because I get a lot from pictures.
Right.
It'd be very emotionally taxing.
I imagine so. And how do you, I know that you work with the chakras and the energy. I mean, how do you decompress from all of this, that you take on?
I have really done a lot of research and started educating myself on making sure to protect myself so that I will stay safe, not just for myself, but for my family and my home and everything else. So grounding is always a huge thing. So gardening is something that I love to do.
Right.
So release any sort of energy to the earth.
Right. That's what it's there for.
What it's there for. So I do a lot of that to make sure that I'm just, keeping everything with a positive energy flow, and I'm not dragging stuff around that I don't need to be.
Right. And you are, as a single mom, how does your child feel about this?
It's been fun, interesting. He's gifted also.
Oh.
And started relaying
good.
messages at a very early age to me. Some that, even were shocking to me. So I was like,
well, it's good that, you can guide him and, so he doesn't get overwhelmed.
Well, and that's what I told him. I said, you got something I didn't, is that you have someone that says, hey, look, I get it.
Yeah.
So, but he still, I think, I'm not sure what he believes, but he definitely is. Some of those moments I wonder, I'm like, what do you think I do?
Right. So do you find that your gift comes from your bloodline?
There is a lot of intuition in my family, yes. So, and intuition, anybody can truly develop intuition. The people that are not born, with it, can develop it. I think that there's different variables and different gifts that will open for people, which is why I have another group that I actually do. That's a private group that I do teaching people how to develop their intuitions and gifts and things like that. That I do weekly classes on and training to teach them how to build their gifts and understand them more and how to activate them and use them. So,
well, that's impressive. And that is on your Facebook page?
It's a separate page because I do a monthly fee for it.
Right.
And so they pay for a monthly fee, and we do a weekly class where I educate them on different things and how to use their gifts and how to, kind of start building their own, understanding of it. So,
but if anyone's interested in that,
they message me through my personal or through my business Facebook page on Clairvoyant Jess, and then I would discuss with them how we could get that going.
Great. Okay, so just to recap, if anyone wants to contact you for these classes or a particular reading, they can contact you on Facebook at the Clairvoyant Jess.
Correct.
Correct. Yep. That's your business page.
That's the business page, yes.
Okay. Well, with these gifts, a lot of times, the more you use them, the more you utilize them, the stronger they get. So do you see your gifts increasing in strength?
Yes, I do. And some of the stuff that people have called and asked about or asked for that I had not experienced before or had not ever actually attempted before, I've noticed that honestly, the only thing that limits us is our minds.
Right. So, do you anticipate, at some point, this decreasing?
No, I don't. It has gotten stronger and stronger as the older I'm getting. It just keeps going better and better. I guess is a good thing. So I don't see it getting any less. I think the only time that someone's gifts would potentially be affected is by their own doing, like they chose to walk away from the path, or if there was something that was spiritually attacking them, which would be a whole different situation.
Have you heard of those kind of encounters where people are spiritually attacked when they have these gifts?
Oh yes, oh yeah. I've got I have images that are on my Facebook page of some house cleansings that I did where I've got visible bruises. From going into someone's house that was very, very dark entities. So they can. It's not generally the ones that you run across more than anything is the ones that pull mental drain, or they just start experiencing their life being a little bit, nothing seems to go right for them.
Right. So do you find that the entities that you're dealing with are just residual energies left over from those that have passed, or are demonic of nature? What do you see
It
the
is,
most?
honestly, I think it's very rare to run across anything that's demonic. Most of the stuff that people deal with is what I would just call lower vibration. They're, the word that I always generally use on my page is probably, I don't think would be appropriate, but they're jerks. If they're jerks in life, they're going to be jerks in death.
Right.
And so if that's how they were, when they were here, a lot of times what people are dealing with when they think they're dealing with something that's evil, it's not, it's just that they were maybe a jerk. I mean, they were just a really bad person, but doesn't mean that they were actually demonic. So,
Right.
But yeah, there can be actual entities, or it could be a spirit that was possibly from another realm.
So most that you see are just energy trapped, that has nowhere to go.
It's that, and then people that have opened things up and toyed with things that they should not have done.
That's why I asked you about the demonic, because, Ouija boards are still fun for kids. And, bad things get brought out.
Portals get open, and just because you shut that box does not mean that you shut anything.
Right.
So, my son had a friend over one day and was actually watching a show. It was one of the ghost shows, because some of those are interesting to watch every now and again. And they had a Ouija board on there. And my son looks at his friend and he goes, "It is the gateway to hell, don't ever touch it." And I was like, that's my son.
Right, but it is. You don't know. It's kind of like, the internet in a way. When,
You don't know who's on the other side of it.
You don't know who's on the other side. They could be there and just trying to work, or they could be there trying to cause ill.
Well, and then the other factor being that it could be somebody that was that is playing as if, just like on the internet.
Right.
They can mimic and give you very strong inclinations and signs and messages that all signs point to, that's who you're talking to. But since you don't have enough experience with that, then you don't know how to protect yourself, and you don't know how to stop, things that potentially can be very, very dangerous.
Right. So, would you suggest any advice to anyone that has, or is thinking of, or has tampered with this kind of stuff? Would you give them any kind of advice?
If it's already been tampered with, well, if it's already been tampered with, and if they're starting to experience things, then they need to contact someone. Contact a professional that has some experience in understanding that realm, because it's not something that they need to try to address on their own. If they're not experiencing anything, just a fair warning that sometimes it does take time, but they can have those things still come up years later. My biggest thing is there's some prayers. You can find them on Pinterest. You can find them anywhere, but it's actually, they call them cutting cords, for cutting cords and for your own personal, and it's an Archangel Michael prayer. And I generally would recommend if they're wanting to make sure to not experience it, to look up the Archangel Michael's prayer for cutting cords, because that's just saying that you're releasing that tie.
Because I would think, especially if you have a deep connection with a loved one, those ties, those cords bind you to each other. And
every relationship you actually establish in life will develop a cord.
And there are times that you need to let go.
They do, and that's and that's another thing that the Reiki actually helps people with. So people that have had problems with letting go of relationships, or struggled with relationships that are kind of on a cycle that just seems to kind of repeat and keeps going back and forth, and it's not healthy for either party.
Right.
And they know that they want to let it go, but they just are struggling to. Then that's another thing that Reiki actually can help work through with them.
Do you find that a lot of people that have these cords that tie them to a living person or someone that has passed, do you see that that is detrimental to both the person that's passed and the person that's left here?
It's dependent, really. I've seen ones that, yes, where it is trapped, the person that's passed on, to where they cannot actually fully cross over.
Right.
Or even just an experience they experienced right at the end, and then both of them have passed, and it left residual energy on properties. That So there's all kinds of.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure. Back to energies. Do you believe that energy has a conscience?
I believe that it can, I don't know that it's the same conscious that we have. I mean, I think that it's different because of, there's not, just like when I just answer people's questions, that their questions, I always have to tell them, look, I'm seeing that it's going to happen, and I have to give them almost a window like the cable guy, because spirit's realm and everything else like that, it seems to work on just a little bit more of an open, philosophy of just things are time and everything else just doesn't seem to have the same connection as what it does when we're right here on Earth. So,
and these energies, that we possess that drive and house in our shells, they get trapped. And I'm guessing that that's through maybe a traumatic passing or some tie that will not allow them to move on, like with another person.
Right.
What do you think is, that binds them? And does it ever dissipate?
Well, it can dissipate. I think that generally the reasons that it would hold them here, just like one of the ones that I have with the cleansing, is that they have not been able to find the peace that they need. They don't have what they needed to actually feel like they could cross fully over. And what they need at that point is they need someone that can, one, hear them, which this interesting story of the house cleansing that I was doing, that the lady actually had the police called to her home in the middle of the night. She was asleep, and she was woken up by the police at her door asking if she was okay. And she was like, I was sleeping, and they said there were reports from neighbors of a woman screaming for help. And it had started being recurring. And then we crossed paths, and I actually went out to the property and realized that it was a trapped spirit that had died in a very, very horrible way. And she had never been able to really get her story out.
Right.
And it was one of those things that you visually see on video. I mean, I've got images that show it's my body, it's my clothes, it's not my face.
Wow.
So, I mean, but I gave her that moment to be able to get her piece out. Which was,
so you can assist spirits that are trapped in helping them to move over.
to cross over.
To cross over. That's wonderful. And I'm sure that, you might encounter spirits that don't even realize that they have passed on.
Yeah, those are fun though, because at least most of them are, because they're kind of entertaining, because they're kind of lost.
Right.
And it's kind of like when you're lost and you're kind of just bewildered as to what's going on here, and and they don't even understand that they're not here living anymore, and that I'm alive, and then sometimes they just say, well, that's really weird.
Right. Well, I imagine it would be. I mean, if you died a traumatic death and you didn't realize you were dead.
Right.
I mean, how can you get through to those spirits to help them?
The ones that they don't know that they've had. I mean, it honestly, it's dependent upon it. I mean, if I guess the effects are affecting something in your, in your home, or in your job or your work or anything like that, talk to them. They hear us just as much as we hear them. I mean, especially if they're one of the stronger ones. So they can hear us. They hear us, I mean, whenever you speak.
Wow. Okay. Alrighty then. So in wrapping it up, if anyone wants to get in touch with you,
Clairvoyant Jess.
Clairvoyant Jess on Facebook, and you've given us a great deal of information and a wealth of things to do, and now we know how to get in touch with you.
Yeah.
So, please, if you have any questions or you have any issues in regards to any of these
Paranormal,
activities,
spiritual, anything.
yes, please contact Clairvoyant Jess on Facebook